Benevolence Immortals. You can call me Whimsical William. Welcome to my channel. Alright, so I've seen a lot of people on the internet say that Call of the Night, the manga, didn't have a good ending. I'm here to convince you that Call of the Night had a pretty good ending. The build-up was so good towards the ending that I can understand how some people were underwhelmed by it. Me myself, I'm a big fan of inconclusive and ongoing endings, and it really leaves hope that more can be derived from the story and the characters. And I believe there's another arc, so that makes my claim even more so accurate. And in the thumbnail you saw I had some figures of Nazuna. I'm a big fan of Nazuna, and I just really like Call of the Night. At first I was like, I don't know, kids in middle school, she's like an older vampire, I really don't like this trope. But the way they handle romance and the way they handle the entire idea and belief of love, it's just so delicate and so respectful. Like, it's just a breath of fresh air when it comes to the entire vampire genre and romance. And the comedic beats hit every time at the right time. And it was just a joy to read. Beautiful artwork. I love the dialogue from the characters. And one of my favorite things about this manga is how progressive and linear each character develops. It's just a joy to see. And this video is going to have spoilers, by the way, so I apologize if you haven't read it or even watched it. But if you have, let's have a discussion. Let's talk about it in the comments below. And also, before I get too far in this video, if you're feeling the content, if you're feeling my ideas, and just the overall videos in general, hit that like, hit that subscribe. I really appreciate it. On the road to 1,000 subscribers. We're inching there, we're getting there. It's lit, it's awesome. But anyway, let's get back on topic. So these characters develop in a very linear way, in a very believable way. And even though we're discussing the supernatural, everything feels natural. Now, usually I don't get into spoilers with these videos, but I thought I'd switch it up. Let's talk about some of the first volumes of the manga. Call of the Night's first volume was just fun and comedic, and really it's just Ko, being a middle schooler. He's kind of got the whole Shikamaru kind of headspace. Shikamaru being one of the characters from Naruto, if you're familiar. He's a ponytail, and he's always saying the iconic line, "This is a drag, this is going to be a drag," which is a mood. He's always perpetually disappointed by his surroundings and the things that are happening to him and around him. Now, Ko is kind of like this, but he's really interesting. Ko is smart, Shikamaru is very smart, and it tends to be an ongoing pattern with smart characters. They tend to put on a mask in front of their peers and in front of, the people that they don't want to get too close. By the end of the day, they're exhausted, at least mentally. Now, Ko is exhausted mentally, but physically, he can't sleep. So this story has a really strong tie with insomnia. Ko has a tough time sleeping, and he has a tough time connecting with kids his age and just connecting to the world around him in general. So he starts to just go out at night instead of sleeping for school. And at some point, he just starts skipping school altogether. I don't recommend skipping school, but I can't lie, I did the same thing when I was younger. Just not for me. Some people just don't really enjoy being in the space with other people their age and being forced to do things that they don't care about. Unfortunately, it's prep for being an adult, because when you become an adult, you're surrounded by people kind of in your age, and you're doing stuff you don't care about. The wisest of us find a way to make a living doing things we love. And I think that's kind of like a loose tie-in to Call of the Night. You know, Ko, our main character, is like, all right, so I'm really good at taking tests. It's draining the life out of me. So he's enjoying the nightlife. He's, you know, just hanging out, looking at the sky. It's kind of aimless, but at the same time free. Goes to a vending machine, and, you know, Japan is crazy. You got cigarettes, coffee, and then beer in the same vending machine. It's insane. And he's like, no one could stop me from drinking a beer. And then our next main character, our heroine, Nazuna, pops up. This girly. I love this figure so much. Very heavy. Nice weight. This isn't a figure review, but I just wanted to show my love for this character a little bit. Maybe one of these days I'll start reviewing more figures and showing my collection, because I've been getting some cool stuff, guys. Alright, back on topic. So Nazuna's like, are you sure you're old enough to be drinking? And he's like, oh, I wasn't about to drink anything. No, he kind of slips back into his model student form. And Nazuna slowly, not even rips the mask off, just slowly slides it down and reveals Ko's true face. And in essence, I believe Nazuna started to realize that she wasn't being honest with herself either. And she started to, in a way, soft deceive Ko. She's like, oh, the nighttime is so cool. You can hang out with all these people. You could do all this stuff. The world's your oyster. But in reality, as a vampire, being alive for, I don't know, she's been around for like 60 years, but she looks like she's in her 20s. So she's not a very old vampire, but within that time, she's already bored. Nighttime sucks. She sees the same scenes over and over. But Ko is a breath of fresh air because he's doing delinquent things, but he's not really delinquent. He's kind of a good kid. So they hang out, they play video games, and Ko is like, well, at first he doesn't know she's a vampire. He just thinks she's kind of different. He has a weird gift of being able to fake going to sleep. So she invites him to her house, and she's like, I can help you go to sleep. And it's a little iffy. It's like, I don't know where this is going. But before it gets into a nasty kind of, I'm not feeling this genre, I'm not feeling what they're doing with the age gap and all, they make it really funny. And that pulled me in. That helped me get relaxed and enjoy the story. So this was the point for me where I was like, all right, I'm not going to sell this manga. I'm actually going to keep it and get the rest of it, all 20 volumes. So they're laying down, and Nazuna is a professional masseuse. So she's like, I can help you go to sleep. He's like, all right. And so, you know, she rubs his shoulders and tries to help him relax. And he pretends to go to sleep. And then, you know, she shows her fangs, starts drooling. And she's like, all right, about to get some blood. And then he's like, what is she doing? Why does she look like that? Let's see what happens. And then she starts to bite him. And then he's like, huh, what? And then she's like, oh, I thought you were asleep. And then he was like, you were gonna bite me. No, I wasn't. You know, she's like playing it off. And what really made it funny was the comparison between vampires and mosquitoes. I think that for all of you watching, it would be great for you to just read those panels. That would pull you in. It was so funny to me. So after that, Nazuna's like, all right, you're pretty smart. I am a vampire. And then he's like, what? Vampires aren't real? No way. And then she's like, all right. And then she starts flying and doing all kinds of crazy vampire stuff. And he's like, no, I ain't scared. I want to be a vampire too. And Nazuna's like, the only way to, become a vampire is to fall in love with a vampire. Ko's like really into the idea of becoming a vampire, but he doesn't know anything about love. He doesn't understand how it works, how to feel it, how to fake it, anything. So that becomes the dilemma, the overarching story for the rest of the manga. So we got 20 volumes of this kid trying to become a vampire and also wrestling with the idea of what love is, if it's possible for him to feel it. Now, I'll cover some of the middle of the story. Basically, major spoilers up ahead, by the way. Basically, Ko starts to understand different aspects of love, not love as a general entity or an idea, but little portions of it, like being possessive over someone because you want all their time and you want all their presence and you just want them to yourself. It's like a very juvenile take on the first inklings of love, but it's like you don't really care about a lot of people. I mean, you care about people, but everybody has a base amount of care. Like, if I saw you get hurt, I want to help you. If, for instance, you were sad, I'd want to cheer you up. But Ko, in his young age and his really minuscule understanding of love, I think what really sparked the first ideas and feelings of it and the possibility of it was the fact that he really wanted Nazuna all to himself, and other people having connections with her that were deemed as romantic made him feel uneasy. And he realized that it's nothing special, it's not sexual, it's not selfishness, it's just when you enjoy somebody's company so much that you don't want to risk losing it or even have less of it. And that, I mean, that could be, friendship, companionship, whatever, but that was a very strong and positive step forward in his quest to fall in love with this vampire so he could become a vampire. But more and more throughout the story, it became less of, I want to fall in love with you because I want to be a vampire, to I can't help but fall in love with you, and it really doesn't matter what happens after that. That was the beautiful takeaway of the themes in this manga. So at first, he's like, all right, this girl, and Nazuna is wild. Like, Nazuna is, so she can't talk about romance or cute things. She'll start blushing and like, I'll talk about that. Ugh. But dirty jokes, it's funny, really. Easy for her to do those things, but difficult to talk about the true aspects of romance. And we get introduced to a whole bunch of other really interesting vampires. You have the vampire and the cool thing I like about this manga, I don't know if they're going to do it in the anime, like the second season, but a cool aspect of this story is the fact that it really doesn't matter how old a vampire is. That's not what makes you strong. What makes you strong is how you utilize your abilities, and if you can really learn these abilities. Like, these vampires can go through solid objects, they can move faster than humans. Not super fast, but fast enough to where humans could never keep up. They have super strength for sure. They're not completely weak to sunlight, so they can be around in the daytime. It's just direct sunlight. Honestly, I haven't seen a vampire in this story besides towards the end of the story get hit with direct sunlight. So a lot of vampires in the story didn't even know that sunlight would kill them, but they just believed it and they didn't want to take any chances. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I will say that the middle of the story has like really cool characters, and we find out as Nazuna and Ko get closer, it's really a friendship between these two, because both of them are too immature in their own ways to fall in love or really approach love, but they end up falling in love, kind of stumbling around the idea of it, like two idiots. I don't know, they're just like bumping into each other, trying to dance and stepping on each other's feet. So that was super cute. It was really cool, but they never really crossed that romantic line, and I never felt uncomfortable because, again, I really hate age gaps. I think it's disgusting. So for me to be able to really enjoy this manga, you could know that, or you should know that they were very delicate with the whole subject matter. And I feel comfortable with telling you all about it and sharing it with you because I felt comfortable reading it. So back on track, we're like kind of like in the middle of the story. I'll give out some spoilers real quick because I kept Warning, and I'm not really giving out any right now, so here's one. Nazuna is not a full vampire. She's a half vampire. Her mom looked exactly like her. Her mom tried to figure out how to be human again, and she thought that if she mimicked a human experience deep enough that she could be human again. And there's another vampire who was, I guess, friends with her, who wanted to choose a different path in becoming human again by not necessarily mimicking a human experience, but being able to legitimately fall in love with the human and have a human fall in love back with her. Because up until now, humans fall in love with vampires, they become vampires, they hang out for a while, sometimes they stay together, sometimes they end up hating each other or going their separate ways. But it's never a two-way street, it's usually a one-way street. And there's a rumor that if the vampire in question and the human in question falls in love, they both die. Or the vampire dies. That was the first rumor. So this is the dilemma happening now because Ko is like, I don't really know what love is, but I feel something that I never felt before, and I don't want to risk killing Nazuna. And Nazuna's like, I don't love you. But really, she's been fell in love with him. Like, just like, there's nobody like him that she's met. And she's like, nah, I can't risk any of this. So towards the ending of the story, I'm missing a bunch of great like chapters and also volumes. There's a volume in here where Ko's best friend falls in love with the vampire himself. That vampire turned out to be the same vampire that knew Nazuna's mom, and they were both trying to figure out how to become human. So that was a whole nother storyline. There's a human in this story who wants to kill all vampires because a vampire turned her dad into a vampire, and then her dad killed her mom right in front of her and then proceeds to just dip out. So she's been wanting revenge on all vampires. That girl was friends with Nazuna years ago, and when she saw, her dad kill her mom, she was like, Nazuna, you're a vampire. I hate you. I hate all of you. So she dedicated her entire life towards killing vampires. And really killing vampires is pretty difficult in this story, but a way to really hurt vampires that she figured out as a kid because of her dad. If a vampire in this story has a piece of paper, an ink pen, any random item that they have a deep connection with from their human life, it hurts them and they can be killed with that item. A sheet of paper that would paper cut someone could destroy a vampire because it had a particular note on it from someone that they loved, or in this case, in this manga, in this particular story, in part, she gave her dad a lighter, and the lighter meant the world to him. So when he touched the lighter, it made him really weak and it hurt him. So she started beating him with the lighter, and she was able to kill her dad who killed her mom. And she snapped after that. She spent 20 years pursuing and killing vampires. She killed quite a few. Earlier in the story, she finds Ko, and Ko is like, I want to become a vampire. And she's like, no, you don't. And if you do, I'm coming after you. Ko was like, really? She's like, yeah, I'm not messing around. And she's kind of a funny character, but she will kill any vampire that she can, and she will harm others to get, what she wants to do, because at the end of the day, she's mentally unstable and also just hurt, traumatized by these vampires that just are all around her. All right, so we're getting towards the end of our story. If you've been sitting here this long with me rambling, I really appreciate it. I kind of covered the middle and the beginning, and I don't really have enough time to go over each character that I love, but Nazuna's goated and Ko is goated, and they're like the main characters, so that's like awesome. So the ending of this story, some people really don't like. It had a pretty lukewarm reception. Some even downright hate it. The thing about the ending of the story is it ends in a stalemate but the stalemate keeps going on and on and on and on. At this point, Ko has become a half vampire. He can almost turn vampire at will. I guess there's like a time limit to how long he can actually use the ability. They didn't really get too clear with how the rules work or how it developed, which is, in my opinion, kind of a low point for the story. They could have really dug in deeper with the whole aspect of the half vampire. But the high point that a lot of people don't like, I'm just gonna get it out, another major spoiler. Ko and Nazuna go their separate ways for a while because Nazuna confronts her emotions. She's grown so much throughout the story, from being a woman with a child's mind and a very immature way of thinking and really just comprehension of love is just super childish, to someone who almost seems like a veteran with these emotions and someone who's able to face these emotions head on, someone who was shut down at the very second of sharing how they feel to someone accurately and softly sharing their feelings, which is a huge yet linear, kind of development, if you will. So the ending, I've been kind of dancing around a little bit. Nazuna and Ko go their separate ways because Nazuna has gone without blood for a very long time. And in this universe, in this story, a vampire that goes without blood gets weaker and weaker. And around the 10-year mark, they just die. Like, a vampire should not go 10 years or more without blood. They won't live. Nazuna, I don't know if she's depressed or if she may vow to only drink Ko's blood or what the case is, but she just stopped drinking blood. And Ko understands that if she drinks his blood, because the way they feel about each other, she could die. So Ko doesn't want that, Nazuna doesn't want that. So they're trying to figure out what their options are. And a very dramatic and almost cliche, because it's already happened in the story where two lovers die, together because they're both in love. One is a human, one is a vampire. The human becomes a vampire, and as the sun rises, they both turn to ash. They didn't want to do that. So instead of having a love that was limited to the moment, the climax, the peak, they decide to just chase each other, which is, I didn't see it coming, so that made it a really good ending too. I honestly thought that they were just going to go their separate ways and never talk to each other again, which would be super sad and kind of anticlimactic. Or they're like, you know what? I don't want to fight this anymore. And they find out that neither one of them is going to die. And that's like a cookie cutter happy ending. Yeah, we got what we want. Or Nazuna dies and Ko is like, I really have to go, living without Nazuna. First time I get to experience love and the person dies. He just gets traumatized by it. Which would be the better of those endings, but still, in my opinion, not a great ending. Because losing Nazuna as a character is just such a waste. I don't like losing characters for the sake of other characters' development. It's just kind of unnecessary and lazy, in my opinion. No, they did something really cool. Nazuna's like, listen, I could bite you anytime. You know what? I haven't tasted you in years. I'm powerful. You're just a human. Let's go. So she tries to bite him, but Ko has been training with the vampire assassin lady. So he's gotten really good at tapping into his half vampire powers and being able to defend himself against vampires. So she's like, oh, you've gotten really good. And he's like, yeah. And he's gotten older too, which is really cool. I like the fact that he's gotten older and they still haven't got that peak romance. So there's still time for him to get even older in these later ideas if the mangaka decides to even do any more besides this next arc. And if it gets printed in English, I hope it does, because I'll be buying it. Yeah, it's cool that he's able to defend himself against her, but at the same time, there are some things that are kind of, I wouldn't say unanswered, but untapped. Like, for instance, Nazuna, like, are you still not drinking blood? That would mean that they need to figure out something before these 10 years are up, and it's already been like 3 years, or 2 years. So that rests on my conscience, that rests on my mind. What are they gonna do with that? And also, after the amount of time that's gone past, Ko should have lost his ability to tap into his half vampire being. So he still has it. So what's going on with that? Is it really safe for these two to fall in love and become vampires together forever? Or is there more to it? I like this ending because it leaves more questions and it makes you draw in your own blanks, but it does give you enough answers to conclude the story. All right, these two are just going to chase each other all over the place and never quite getting close enough to harm each other in an emotional standpoint or a physical standpoint. Like one of the last panels, they're laying together on snow and there's no physical contact, they're not close, but there's so much closeness between them and it never had to be physical. And that's where I'm gonna leave off. There's a lot of holes and there's a lot of things that I didn't explain, but the one thing I want you to take from this is the fact that intimacy can be just as powerful or more powerful without any physical contact, without any sexual urge, without any stereotypical ideas of what intimacy is. Intimacy is almost a customizable thing, and it's a thing that can be created between two people. Intimacy can be having one earphone in your ear and the earphone in another person's ear and listening to music together. Intimacy can be bike riding together, playing video games, going for a drive, collecting anime figures or manga, having long talks, going for long walks, doing nothing, doing two separate things in the same room together and not even talking to each other. Intimacy is forever a moldable, malleable thing, and this manga teaches you that in the most subtle way, and I think that's why the ending is so beautiful. Thank you so much for listening to this super long video. If you are a fan of vampires and if you are in the market for 20 volumes of a good manga, check out Call of the Night and also subscribe if you feel like it. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.